Imagine a country so wealthy that every single one of its citizens is technically a millionaire. A nation that has mastered the art of turning natural resources into a permanent, multi-generational fortune without falling into the traps of corruption or greed. For decades, we thought Norway's massive wealth was tied strictly to oil and gas. We thought the black gold of the North Sea was the peak of their economic power. But we were wrong. Deep beneath the Scandinavian soil, geologists have just confirmed a discovery so massive, it makes their oil reserves look like pocket change. It's a mineral that every single person on Earth relies on to eat, and it's the backbone of the green energy revolution. We are talking about a $24 trillion jackpot that is about to change the global balance of power forever. This is the story of how Norway is moving beyond oil to become an untouchable global superpower. To understand where Norway is going, we have to look at where they are right now. When Russia invaded Ukraine, the energy map of Europe was torn up overnight. As nations scrambled to find alternatives to Russian gas, they turned their eyes toward Oslo. Norway didn't just step up, they became the primary lifeline for the continent. Their petroleum exports surged fivefold, cementing their status as Europe's energy kingpin. It was a massive transfer of wealth that reminded the world just how much power lies in the hands of those who control the taps. But here's the thing, Norway doesn't spend that money like other countries. Most oil-rich nations blow their windfalls on mega projects, artificial islands, or luxury skyscrapers that serve more as monuments than investments. Norway instead funnels every extra cent into the government pension fund global. Today, that fund is valued at roughly $1.5 trillion. To put that in perspective, that's about $280,000 for every man, woman, and child in the country. It is essentially a giant savings account that owns 1.5% of all publicly traded companies in the world. If you own a smartphone, a pair of Nike shoes, or a share in Apple, the people of Norway probably own a piece of it too. But in 2023, the game changed. Near the town of Stavanger, geologists uncovered something extraordinary: the world's largest deposit of phosphate rock. We're talking about 70 billion tons of high-grade phosphate. Now you might be wondering, why does a rock matter as much as oil? Because without phosphate, the world starves. It is the critical ingredient in fertilizer. As the global population grows, the demand for food security has made phosphate a strategic mineral. Beyond food, it's the new oil for the tech sector. Phosphate is essential for lithium iron phosphate batteries, or LFP batteries. These are the very things powering the electric vehicle revolution and storing energy for massive solar farms. Until now, the Western world was in a precarious position. Before this discovery, 70% of the world's phosphate was concentrated in Morocco, with the rest spread across China, Egypt, and Algeria. These are often geopolitically sensitive regions. The West depended on them, but couldn't control the supply chain. Now Norway has entered the chat, offering a stable, democratic alternative. At current market prices, these reserves are worth an estimated $24 trillion. That is almost exactly the value of Saudi Arabia's remaining oil wealth. But how did a small nation of just 5.5 million people get so lucky? Well, it wasn't just luck, it was a century of brilliant strategy. If you go back to the 1950s, Norway was a different world. It was a quiet nation of 3.5 million people, mostly exporting fish and timber. There's a common myth that Norway was a poor country before oil. That's not quite true. Even back then, they had high literacy, low inequality, and a rock-solid democracy. What they lacked was global relevance. By the early 1900s, they had already mastered their geography. They harnessed their steep mountains and rushing rivers to create massive hydroelectric power. This cheap, renewable energy fueled their early industrialization long before the first drop of oil was ever found. They were ready for success. They were just waiting for the catalyst. That catalyst arrived in 1959, when the Netherlands discovered the Groningen gas field, the largest in the world at the time. The North Sea suddenly became the hottest real estate on Earth. Massive oil conglomerates rushed in. But while other nations were handing out drilling rights like candy, Norway hesitated. They were worried. They didn't want foreign companies stripping their resources and leaving with the profits. They also faced a massive legal hurdle. There were no clear maritime boundaries. If oil was found, who actually owned it? In May 1963, Norway took a bold step. They issued a royal decree declaring sovereignty over their seabed. By 1965, they negotiated the median line principle, with neighboring countries drawing clear lines in the water. Only then did they allow the drills to start turning. When they finally hit oil at the Ekofisk field, the scale was staggering. But instead of privatizing the industry and letting billionaires take the wheel, the government did something unusual. In 1972, they founded Statoil, now known as Equinor. They didn't just collect taxes, they learned the business. They trained their own workers and built their own refineries. They ensured that the vast majority of the wealth stayed within Norway. This brings us to a concept economists call the resource curse, or Dutch disease. Usually when a country finds massive amounts of oil, it destroys their economy. The sudden influx of cash makes the local currency so expensive that other exports, like farming or manufacturing, become too pricey to sell. It creates a lazy elite class and fuels corruption. Norway escaped this by creating a firewall between their oil money and their domestic economy. There is no oil elite in Norway. The wealth belongs to the public. This is why Norway has the fourth highest standard of living in the world, with a GDP per capita exceeding $100,000. Their citizens even live, on average, 10 years longer than their neighbors in other Nordic countries. By 1990, Norway faced a high-class problem. They had so much money coming in from oil that they didn't know what to do with it. If they spent it all at once, they would cause massive inflation. So they created the oil fund. The rule was simple. The government can only spend the interest, roughly 3% a year, while the principal stays invested for future generations. In 2023 alone, this fund generated $380 billion in market returns. Think about that. They made more money from their investments than many countries make from their entire GDP. Now let's go back to that $24 trillion phosphate discovery. This is the next chapter of the Norwegian miracle. The deposits near Stavanger go deep, about 4,500 meters down. Currently, our technology only allows us to reach about 500 meters. But Norway has a history of playing the long game. When the Ekofisk oil field was first tapped, engineers expected it to last 30 years. It's been 50 years and it's still producing. Technology always catches up, and Norway knows how to wait. If Norway extracts even a fraction of this phosphate, they could control over half of the global supply. We've already seen how powerful this can be. In 2021, China restricted its phosphate exports to protect its domestic supply, and global prices skyrocketed. In the modern world, resources aren't just commodities, they are geopolitical weapons. And Norway is about to hold one of the biggest weapons in the world. Of course, not everyone is celebrating. The European Union is in a tough spot. Refining phosphate is a dirty, polluting process. It involves heavy machinery and the management of toxic byproducts. That's why Europe outsourced it years ago. While Norway isn't a member of the EU, it is part of the European Economic Area, meaning it still has to navigate complex environmental laws. In 2024, the EU will vote on new regulations that could either fast-track this mining or tie it up in red tape for decades. Environmentalists are concerned about the impact on the local fjords and the carbon footprint of the extraction process. Then there's the impact on the global market. Morocco, which currently dominates the sector, relies on phosphate for nearly a quarter of its exports. A sudden flood of Norwegian phosphate could crash prices, potentially destabilizing other economies. But if history is any indication, Norway won't rush. They will wait until the technology is clean, the legal framework is solid, and the market is ready. When they do start digging, those profits won't go to CEOs, they will go into that same sovereign wealth fund. Imagine the math for a second. If that fund doubles or triples because of phosphate, we are looking at a future where the fund holds $5 trillion to $10 trillion. That would mean nearly $2 million in public wealth for every single Norwegian citizen. No other country on earth is even in the same league. Some people suggest Norway should use this future wealth to massively increase foreign aid. Others think they should fund global climate projects or build futuristic megacities. But Norway's true power has always been its restraint. They have proven to the world that money doesn't have to ruin a society. They have shown that patience can defeat greed. Oil made Norway rich. Phosphate could make them untouchable. They have the resources, they have the technology, and most importantly, they have the discipline to manage it. The world is watching because the way Norway handles this $24 trillion gift will set the blueprint for how a nation survives and thrives in the 21st century. If you found this deep dive into Norway's future interesting, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. We're constantly tracking the shifts in global wealth and power that you won't hear about in the mainstream news. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.